Bye.
All right. Good morning if you are in the United States on the East Coast. My name is Avra Basov. I am our manager for brand engagement and strategic communications. I've been at ATD for just over 3 years now, and we are starting a new series called ATD Talks Talent, and today we're discussing the value of talent development. I'm here with Kristen Fife-Mills. Kristen, can you introduce yourself to our audience?
Sure, this is exciting, playing with technology. Yeah, I'm Kristen. I am the Director of Marketing and Strategic Communications for ATD. Been with the organization a little over 11 years in a couple of different roles. Love the field, love ATD, love our members, love our global community. Kind of excited to put our toes in this little effort to talk about how great the field is.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for taking the time. I know we're all busy these days, but it's very good to have you. So getting into it a little bit, want to talk about talent development, which is why we're here. So talent development is a pretty broad term. And I know in 2014, we as an organization rebranded from ASTD to ATD in 2014. So can you tell us a little bit about what your definition of talent development is?
Well, because we have defined it in this lovely book that came out earlier this year, which is the capabilities for talent development. When we're talking about talent development, we're really talking about all of the efforts that foster learning and employee development in organizations so that they drive organizational performance, productivity, and results. So beyond just training, beyond just instructional design, there's a whole scope of work that happens that really is focused on people, helping them unleash their potential so that organizations can do more and better work.
Love it. From your perspective, what does a successful talent development function look like?
Yeah, so I was really fortunate when I came on board with ATD to work with our awards programs, our Best Awards and our Excellence in Practice Awards and our Advancing, well, then it was Workplace Learning and Performance Awards. And so as part of that work, I got really steeped in the amazing work that is happening out there in the real world with the folks who, spend their lives really looking at how to help people achieve their best in organizations so that organizations can achieve their best. And what we've learned from those companies is that really when we're talking about a talent development function that is really kind of firing on all cylinders, there's alignment to what the business strategies are. Talent development has a seat at the proverbial table. The function is viewed as a strategic partner, not just an order taker. Like, oh, we need you to make this training because something's not working. There's a lot more to it than that, right? So when we're looking at what are best practices, the companies that are kind of at the top of the game really are taking a serious look at their talent strategy. They're looking at development as a strategic imperative, and they are looking at it as an investment, investing in people rather than as a cost center. One of the things that we see frequently, and especially in times like this during recessions, is that the training function can get cut kind of just completely. We're seeing less and less and less of that because I think organizations and leadership are understanding how important it is to keep investing in people.
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned this strategic alignment to business objectives and everything. And what is it that, from a business perspective, the talent development function really brings to the table for organizations?
Yeah, I think that's a really complex, it's a complex answer, I think. But one of the things, and if you were to look at our awards applications, we kind of walk through almost the process, like in our Excellence Awards, our Excellence in Practice Awards. The application is really kind of set up in the way that you would approach it when you're trying to solve for a problem, right? So you are interviewing your stakeholders. You're doing a needs assessment that is really kind of holistic. And then from that, you are determining the best modalities, and you're determining what kind of courses need to be put in place, or whether it's actually a training program. Because a lot of times we find that some of the things that are, like throw a training solution at it and you're like, it's not a training problem, it's something else, and so we get into the performance improvement side of things, and really kind of that, the organizational development piece. But it's, when you're doing it well, it is a robust approach to looking at A, what the problems are, B, where the company wants to go, and how to use people and skill development to achieve that, and then just building the right kinds of programs. Not just like, oh, you have to go sit in this training course. I mean, there's a lot of that happens, but what does it look like to make that course or that program something that people are actually fired up about, that they'll also remember? So building in the post-learning piece of that, which we know is really important too, in terms of like knowledge retention. And as important as anything else, the role of the manager in making it stick. There's it's our research, it's Gallup's research, that the role that the manager plays in helping people take their game to the next level is really, really, really important.
Right. And it's, going back to the definition of talent development, I mean, we have the argument per se that every manager is a talent development professional in terms of developing their talent, whether that's, an official role or not. Right.
Right. So we work together. I manage you. I would like to think that I've helped develop your talent, but if I haven't, we might want to take that offline and you can tell me what I'm doing wrong.
Not on a live conversation.
No, but really, I mean, I take that seriously, right? Like I'm constantly asking you, what are you learning? How are you applying it? And it is important, and it is not something that most managers, I can't say that, but I do think that it's maybe it's intuitive, or maybe people a lot, and I've worked for several over the course of my career, where it's just like, I don't have time for that. I got stuff to manage,
Right. And managing results.
To you to own your own learning, the manager has some opportunity there, really good opportunity. It helps build engagement, like a whole host of things that investment of time and interest proves to be effective.
Yeah, definitely. And just going back to your experience with our award winners, I want to give our listeners, watchers, audience a heads up that our Excellence in Practice and Best Award winners are featured in our magazine, which I think you're about to hold up, which is available.
How shiny it is.
Very shiny.
We did a 13th issue of TD magazine to kind of capture all of those award winners, and it is available online. So great reading, great work. It's really great inspiration too. A lot of people are like, I could do that in my organization, or they face the same challenges I did.
Right. And there are definitely, speaking of challenges, a lot of challenges, unfortunately, that we're facing these days, in this moment of economic and public health and societal
global cray
turmoil. Yes. The 2020 meme that you love so much of what year has this week been? But in that vein, just as the world of work is evolving and everything, what can talent development professionals really do to help their organizations and employees at this time?
A lot, I think. One is we saw this in our most recent skills gap, which we're getting ready to update, our skills gap white paper, this tension between what we need now and what we need in 5 years, right? And now that's even like crazier. So one of the first things that we saw the field do in March was this hard pivot to virtual training, right? Because people still need to upskill, things still need to happen. And it was very interesting because we heard from a lot of organizations like, virtual training was kind of on our back burner, or, we were going to invest in it someday. And now it's like, oh no, this is your only choice.
It's now.
Right. Like, no, back burner just became front burner. And so, fortunately, we were able to pull together some resources that people found very valuable. The courses that we offer on facilitating virtual training and designing virtual training. And then we added a new one, producing virtual training, because that's its own little special bucket of love.
Right.
have been just really, really, really in high demand, which is great. But that was one of those things where it's just like, yes, we have the technology, let's make it work for us, right? So now we're in this place, like, how do you sustain it? How do you sustain the energy for that? And now I think balancing the learning portfolio between what is going to be virtual, what's going to be in person, what does coming back in person to learn look like? It's a whole nother bucket of stuff to figure out. But so there's the here and now, right? And as organizations are contracting, either through layoffs or RIFs or furloughs, there's the reboarding for people that'll come back. They might be coming back into new jobs. There's companies that are going to be restructuring, and they're going to have jobs that didn't exist before COVID hit, right?
Which in the future of work.
Right. Well, and that was coming anyway, right? It was always like, oh, in 2030, there's going to be a bunch of jobs that don't even exist now. I'm like, no, actually, that's probably tomorrow. Also,
literally now.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And so looking at that, it really is the talent development professionals' responsibility, honor, privilege to figure that out and to figure out what the skill sets are that the organization needs to move forward. So it's like that, it's the tension between the what do we need now, but what do we need in the future, and have your eye kind of in both places, and hopefully the support of senior leadership that allows you to be able to do the kind of analysis and then the investment in the learning that needs to happen so that organizations can accelerate out of this crazy curve that we're in right now.
Roller coaster, if you will.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, lots of twists and turns happening right now. So, there's that disruption, there's uncertainty. You mentioned, because you started at ATD around the last economic kind of downturn.
I came in 2009. And so that was, the bottom fell out of the market in 2008 and in some of 2009. And what we saw then was that the training function, talent development function, was not wholesale cut like it had been in previous recessions, which is great news. We believe that, and what we saw in our research was that the companies that continued to invest in, nice brand placement there, Aubrey, very good.
Listen,
those cups are for sale on the ATD store, I think. The companies that continue to invest in their people were the ones that were best positioned to come out of the recession. And we believe it's the same now. And this one is different though, right? Because it is caused by a thing. Some companies are thriving and others are not. And it's this really weird mix of, really, really weird mix of just kind of circumstances and situations.
So, just over a decade at this point, like, how were teams able to prove the value of talent development then? And what are some of those, any tips or advice you may have for convincing leadership right now in this moment of the value of talent development?
Yeah, I think the thing that we saw really is that alignment, right? Like making sure that the learning that was happening was relevant to what the organizations needed and what their focus points are. So it's having those conversations.
Yeah.
Partnering with business really to talk about how talent moves into the future and how the shifts in learning investment or programs helps get the company there, right? We know that high performing organizations are more likely to have upskilling and reskilling programs. We know that high performing organizations have a culture of learning, and that is usually something that must be supported from the top.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's just,
These not words. Yep.
We know that high performing organizations foster lifelong learning. They make it a priority. So it's not just about the training class, but there's this constant learning that's going on, whether through informal programs or, lunch and learns or whatever. There's a lot of companies that use their intranet for those types of things. They'll use small groups or tools like Yammer, where there's just kind of like just in time, like, I need help with this thing. Which is like every day in my life right now. We know that We also know that most organizations don't feel like they're prepared for the future of work. And so to me, that speaks to a huge opportunity for that investment in talent development, because we don't know what we don't know. Right. It's not just about technology, right? The other thing that we also know is that, and even in our own skills gap research was, one of the number one skills gaps is in communications and soft skills. How important is that now when our mode of communication is, with the screen? And drive-bys aren't really a thing, where you can just stop and have a chat that turns into like this moment of learning, serendipitous moment of learning, I like to call them. So it really is about kind of focusing on those best practices in talent development, but then those conversations with leadership about what the future looks like. I think are really important right now.
Yeah, and I mean, this for sure, because you're managing a pretty big team right now, of how to manage virtually and how to build a culture of learning even as a dispersed workforce. I don't think either of those things are going away anytime soon.
They can't. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
We're in this season, I think, of learning and unlearning and relearning a lot of things that, and I think it's a tremendous opportunity for organizations. It's the question that I am asking a lot of folks right now is like, yeah, we've always done it that way, but we're not in the same time anymore. What does it look like to do something different? Great example of that was our hard pivot to the virtual conference in June, right?
Absolutely.
We've never done a virtual conference before.
Right.
And we weren't going to be able to have, we were not able to have our large international conference this year in Denver in May because the convention center was a field hospital. And the team came together in less than 7 weeks and pulled off an amazing event. And as we're looking forward to 2020, I think we've announced, if we haven't, hey, guess what? All the rest of our events this year are going to be virtual. Our education team did a brilliant job of pivoting almost 100% of our face-to-face inventory and courses that we offer throughout the year and around the world to live online. So has been an opportunity for us and so a little backstory, at the beginning of the year, it's like, we really should try our hand at a virtual conference. We had a plan.
I remember.
It's going to be during Employee Learning Week in December.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's not a nice to do, it's a have to do. And the learning from that is informing how we're moving forward with our fall events. So it's really an amazing time for learning if you think about it and kind of can separate yourself from like the fear and paralysis of watching too much news. And to really embrace the learning that is really all around us in every dimension of life.
Yes, absolutely. So wrapping up the value of talent development conversation, in this series, we're going to be asking a consistent 3 questions just to get, a bunch of different perspectives on the same questions. Okay. So the first one, which I think we've talked about before, but not on a live stream, what is a skill or experience you've had that's not listed on your LinkedIn profile?
This is my favorite question.
I know.
A skill or experience that is not listed on my LinkedIn profile. So I did my quarter life crisis right on time in my 20s and stopped working, hiked the Appalachian Trail in 1990. It's going to date me a bit, isn't it? And then the next year, because I still wasn't done exploring and learn, and I mean, the lessons learned from this 2-year extra experience were, they're still with me. The next year I rode my bicycle from Virginia to Oregon. Sure. Along what was then the Bike Centennial Trail that had been established in 1976 when the country turned 200 years old. So yeah, that doesn't show up on my LinkedIn profile. But it does show up in my knees now because paying for it, it's a lot of miles.
Awesome. This one, I feel like you may need to take a moment to think about, but what is the best piece of advice you have ever received?
It's twofold. One, the power of forgiveness and the power of gratitude. And some of that is formed through my faith lens. I lean on my faith really heavily. But those two things, the freedom that can come through just letting go of resentment, pretty game changing. And with that comes gratitude, right? The power of gratitude. As a matter of fact, I'm going to start a new thing on Thursdays for our team. Ooh. I'll tell you about it on Thursday. That's
okay. That's tomorrow.
Tomorrow. It came to me yesterday.
Okay.
So.
Amazing. Yeah, there's so much to embrace in terms of gratitude, just despite all of the circumstances we're going through. That's a really.
I had a friend. I had this habit. I haven't done it in the last couple of years, but in the month of November, when the U.S. celebrates Thanksgiving, I would just do 30 days of gratitude, and just kind of started that and would ask people to join me and hashtag whatever. It's before hashtags. A friend of mine who I had worked with kind of watched that evolve over the year and then did her own year of gratitude.
Wow.
And she said it absolutely transformed her life. She blogged about it for the year that she was doing it. And it's, if you can start the day thinking about something that you're happy about, like actually being able to wake up.
Yeah.
Having another, lap around the sun. And then at the end of the day, 3 things. And they can be like, I had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and it was amazing, or, I got a raise, or,
yeah.
I have a roof over my head. It's that simplicity for me is one of those things that just helps keep my joy level a little higher than my despair level.
Which is
actually a lot higher.
Extremely important right now. Yeah. The last of these consistent questions is, what is something you're looking forward to over the next month?
Oh, goodness. I did see these questions in advance.
No, you did.
Clearly did not prepare an answer for this one. My husband and I will be celebrating our anniversary.
Oh,
September. So that's a month from now. So that's cool.
Yeah, that
we
counts.
Want to do something. We need to figure out where we could go.
Yeah.
But probably somewhere in the mountains, just hike for the day or something, just to celebrate the fact that we get to love each other, and that's a good thing.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Kristen. Any parting words about the value of talent development or advice to people right now? This was not on the outline, but here we are. Just something you'd want people to take away from the conversation we just had.
Yeah, I think that it is really important for all of us to be investing in our learning. And I know that when corporate budgets are cut, it's like, oh, my company's not going to pay for that course. And I'm not, this is going to sound like I'm speaking as the marketing director for ATD. I'm not. I love Seth Godin. I had the privilege of being able to chat with him when he keynoted for us
last year.
Conference. Yeah, it was last year. Wow, it feels
only like last year.
He talks a lot about how important learning is. And it, could be you want to learn something new. Lots of people have apparently learned how to make sourdough bread. I am not one of them. I keep asking for starters, but haven't gotten any yet. Anyway, my point is that we have to keep learning, and we have to do what we can do. And if investing in your own development is a book or a video series or something, do it. Make the time for it. Make it a priority. Yeah. That's where growth happens, right? Growth happens outside your comfort zone, and goodness knows we are all outside our comfort zones, but make the most of it.
Yeah.
Right. Make the most of it. And for those of you who are watching who are talent development professionals, the work you do, I could cry. I probably might. It's so important, and I know you don't hear that.
It really is.
Every day. But we see it, and we believe in it, and we believe in you, and we're here to help. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Kristen. That was even more wisdom in your wrap up. All right, everyone, thanks for joining us for this conversation of ATD Talks Talent, talking with Kristen Fife Mills about the value of talent development. Join us to be announced for our next episode of ATD Talks Talent. Have a great rest of your week, and everyone stay healthy and safe. Bye.